We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today is Tennessee Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton. Speaker Sexton, we're talking about the change in TennCare. New President Joe Biden is not a fan of block grants. There's been strong speculation he might rescind what the Trump administration decided late in the game. Now, the General Assembly this week has already quickly ratified a new agreement with the federal government based on what the Trump administration approved. Given the dominance of the federal government, though, can't the new president pretty much rescind that and go back to the funding we've had in the past for TennCare?
There's an escape clause which would allow him to do that and allow ourselves to do that if they try to change what we agreed to. I think it's a very good system for our state to move forward. We want something designed by Tennesseans to help Tennesseans, not designed by Washington that was beneficial for Washington and Oregon. So I think it's something that we can work with. Hopefully he'll let us continue it.
Are you going to continue to try to work with him and not just have him unilaterally do that? Do you think there's some chance he might change his mind, or you might change the bureaucrat's mind?
Well, I mean, he might take a look at it. He might not know the details of it at this point, so he can take a look at it and see. I think it would be a model for other states. If you really want to deliver health care and have results, I think this is a good direction to go.
When you're back in session, COVID-19 still seems to be ravaging across the state. Several of your members have consistently not wanted to wear masks while you're in session. Some of your colleagues have been stricken with the disease. David Byrd has been ill for some time and been on a ventilator. Do you plan to start making members wear masks because the virus has gotten worse since the last time you were in town? Health officials do still say it's the best thing we can do right now to stop COVID-19.
Well, we're not going to mandate masks here for members. I don't think a mask stops COVID-19. It may reduce COVID-19 potentially. I think there's debate there. What I will say about the mask is you have to make sure it's clean, make sure it's new, because if it's not those things, you could actually have a higher infection rate by wearing the mask than not wearing the mask. So you have to be careful with the mask too.
Just as lawmakers came back to Nashville about 2 weeks ago, another scandal erupted involving the General Assembly. 4 lawmakers and some staff members had their homes and or offices raided by the FBI with computers, files, cell phones, and other items taken. You said you were made aware of the investigation back when you became Speaker in the summer of 2019. Were you aware these raids were coming?
Well, I can't talk about an ongoing investigation about what I may or may not know. What I've said is I was contacted shortly after becoming Speaker by federal authorities, aka the FBI, and we've been cooperating with them ever since, and we'll continue to do that as their investigation's ongoing. There
are now media reports that this investigation could go on for months, even years. You've placed some of the staff involved on leave. If the investigation goes on for a while, might you have to review that status and change it a little bit for the employees?
We'll take a look at it. We said they were on administrative leave with pay until further notice, so we'll see what that means as we move forward and what the investigation looks like.
There have also been reports prior to this raid that the FBI was also investigating the House vote to approve the school voucher bill, which occurred before you became Speaker. The raid seems to have been aimed, this particular raid that happened seems to have been aimed possibly at laundering of campaign funds. Did the FBI give you any indication that perhaps multiple matters they're looking in, not just laundering of funds?
All I can say is I can't comment on what I may or may not know on the ongoing investigation based on the conversations I've had with them.
Looking back over the years, Tennessean did an article about this. There seemed to have been a scandal happened at the legislature involving lawmakers about every 5 or 8 years. Is there time for a change in culture at the Hill, and what would that be, and can you do it before this investigation is resolved?
Well, I mean, I think it's been longer than 8 years. I'm not going to argue with the details of that. I mean, I think things happen and people do things sometimes, and if you break the law, then you break the law and the consequences should follow. So we'll follow about the investigation and see what happens.
On a lighter note, there's been a bill put into the legislature that would put up a statue on Capitol Hill to country music superstar and philanthropist Dolly Parton, who celebrated her 75th birthday this week. Is this the time that the money would come from private funds, private fundraising? Do you think that's a pretty good idea? There aren't any entertainers or anybody that's a non-politician or elected official that has a statue on the Hill.
Well, we all love Dolly, and she's an important part of our state, but of course she has to approve anything that happens with her likeness on it. I don't think we can just do that without her blessing. That bill will go through the committee and we'll see what happens. Who knows what will happen.
It's a long process beyond that, and certainly taking one down like the Nathan Bedford Forrest bust has taken a while as well. Should it be easier to put up a statue than take one down? It seems to take a long time to get one down in Tennessee.
Well, I'm all about the process and the procedure that's laid out in statute. Whatever that process is should be followed from this point forward.
As we begin to wrap up, how long do you see the session going this year? What are the other big issues that you'll be facing when you come back in your regular session beginning after the governor's State of the State address?
Well, budget's obviously number one. With Davidson and Shelby County not performing to the level they are, our state's performing well with 3.2% growth. So I think we're doing well as a state. I think criminal justice reform is one thing we're going to look at. Hopefully we can get some truth in sentencing if people, instead of being put in prison, they maybe go through some drug rehabilitation programs or reentry programs. But we also need to be tough on crime. And then hopefully there'll be some health care reform.
Healthcare reform, you believe that'll be something different than the TennCare reform or something else?
Something different. Surprise billing, balance billing is one issue. All payers claim database where people can shop for prices and know what it's going to cost before they get there. PBM reform. There's a lot of things we can do in healthcare.
Years ago, the state legislature used to stay in session till close to Memorial Day. But in recent years, when the Republicans have been in charge, you've been getting out as early as the first part of April. Do you think April's more likely this year, or might you go later, given all the things that are going on?
No idea. We'll get done when we get done. We have to be flexible and remain fluid during this time. And if we have certain staff, key staff that go out with COVID, if they catch COVID, then we might have to shut down for a little bit. We just have to pass a balanced budget, and that's the one thing we have to do. So hopefully we'll do that in time, and if we need to stay longer, we can.
The legislature always has bills involving guns. We're likely to see the constitutional carry bill that would allow people not to have a permit to carry a gun. Is that likely to pass this time?
I think there's going to be multiple bills. There's a bill that we had last year that was very likely to pass, where it also included criminal enhancements for breaking the car to steal a gun or carrying a gun you weren't supposed to as a felon. Something like that could pass, where you penalize the people who aren't supposed to carry with very tough sentencing guidelines as you allow other people to carry who are law-abiding citizens.
The NRA's filed for bankruptcy. Is that going to have any impact on any of this legislation that's coming related to bills, related to guns?
I mean, that's a question for the NRA. We're going to continue to work and do what we think is best for Tennessee and pass what we think is good public policy. If the NRA is for us, then that's fine.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for being with us. Good luck on the oncoming session. We may have you bring up later on in the session to give us an update on what's going on.
Sounds great. Thank you.
That's Inside Politics for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you're back here again for a future show. If you can't get into politics in the meantime, go to the NewsChannel website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.